Wasn't when survey says swirl in heat. Is that right? I suppose. I'm Bourgeois Pig of This Might Get Ugly, and last episode I jibber-jabbered on about a pretty important note from the father of capitalism himself, Adam Smith, that the big boys up top conveniently neglected and may or may not be the reason we're in the muck now. Go check it out if you haven't already, because it's pretty important as I segue into this next pressing issue. America in peril. Education crisis. Let's start with how consumerism thrives in a culture of distraction. It distracts us from the inequalities, the injustices, and the political turmoil that surrounds us today. Further illustrating my point, to understand this, let's start with a little philosophy. German philosopher Theodor Adorno spoke about the culture industry, how popular culture manipulates and pacifies the masses, turning art into commodity. Did you see that recent art piece titled Comedian that sold for $6.2 million? It's a banana duct taped to the wall. It's a banana duct taped to a wall. And if you've read any of the articles, it is painfully ridiculous. Like an albatross on skates, like a snake eating spaghetti, a whale with hands, orcas wearing dead fish for hats. This one actually happened. The critics argue how the price tag of these ordinary objects is reflected in the licensing of authority, again, banana and duct tape, to, I suppose, become the artists themselves. Swapping out the banana when it browns. You've run out of bananas and can't fight the craving, therefore you need to take the one off the wall. Also, the person that said what better symbol than the banana best represents colonialism, as if that's the message, I would argue, I don't know, the fucking monarchy?
Cheers.
Gentlemen, cheers.
To the Queen. No, I hate the aristocracy, man.
The British flag? The American flag? I promise you, I love my country.
Tatanka. Tatanka.
Anyway, what Theodor Adorno essentially argued was that consumerism doesn't just justify our needs, it creates them. And we perpetuate the cycle like a modern-day Sisyphus, rolling the boulder of our desires up the hill, only to have it roll back down each time we think we've reached the top. So how do we break the cycle and outwit the bigwigs who've kept us under their fat thumbs? How do we not buy into whatever the hell they're selling? What weighs heavy on my little heart is the particularly alarming lack of media literacy. And therein lies the rotten core of how its lack of has insidiously led us in a world inundated with TMI into murky waters of red herrings, half-truths, and misinformation. We need to start thinking critically for ourselves. The question I'm begging is, how can we encourage more curiosity and understanding, even when there are disagreements?
Idiocracy, like the thing about the Crocs. Did you ever hear about that? The Crocs company, they were just starting out then, and the set designer was like, find me the stupidest looking shoes.
Yeah, they didn't have a good budget.
Yeah. And so they went and they found these Crocs and they made everybody in the movie wear them.
To explore this, let's turn to the wisdom of two great philosophers, John Dewey and Bertrand Russell. Dewey, an advocate for experiential and social education, believed that learning should be rooted in real-life experiences and inquiry, i.e., asking questions. He argued that education is not just about acquiring knowledge, but nurturing a sense of curiosity. He breaks it down into 4 quadrants: utility, interest, experience, and integration. Now, think about our current education system. Are we fostering curiosity, or are we just filling minds with facts to regurgitate on tests and poorly developed skills that run on empty calories? Does anyone care about American Idol anymore? So, Now, the ability to critically analyze what we consume is more vital than ever. As Dewey said, if we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. Then we have Bertrand Russell, who famously said, "The good life is one inspired by love and guided by knowledge." What the hell does that mean? What does it mean in the context of our educational crisis, in our media literacy crisis, our media illiteracy? Knowledge should not be static. It should be dynamic and driven by a desire to understand the world around us. Knowledge should not be static. It should be dynamic and driven by a desire to understand the world around us. But how can we harness this spirit of inquiry when the media landscape is so polarized? Many of us gravitate towards information that aligns with our existing beliefs, right? This is known as confirmation bias, and it's a natural human tendency. But in doing so, we miss an essential piece of the puzzle: the value of engaging with differing viewpoints. Can we still hold to our convictions? Curiosity is the antidote to ignorance. It's the spark that ignites our desires to learn and grow. Live, laugh, love. No, that's not right. What the hell is it? Live, laugh, love, play, laugh, grow? Probably no one remembers this, or a very select group of people remember this vividly. Myself being one of them. There's a show on Nickelodeon, early 90s, called Figure It Out. It was a game show with a lot of slime. It was like Kid Jeopardy, but more fun and with slime, where you need to figure something out. I feel like we've lost the will, lost the sense of wanting to figure things out. Is because we have the answer always at our fingertips. Remember a time when we could just pose a question? Who is that actress in that one movie that played opposite Brad Pitt in a different movie? And then we could just not know. We can't look it up. There was a time when we would ask questions like, is a tomato a fruit or a vegetable? And we would just have to guess and live with that. I feel like there's plenty of examples in my life of me having just absorbed an answer that I never actually looked up. Now that we can look up answers on our own, verify our sources, I have 2 points. One, why aren't we doing it enough when it comes to outlandish, scandalous, very sensationalized stories that have somehow become a belief system rather than actual facts or news? It's insane. We're not going to look it up. Like, we're just going to not look up Project 2025 and not read into it when our whole country's at stake for it being implemented. Just not going to look at it. I just believe.
Shun the non-believer. Shun.
Second, we don't need to know all the answers. We have access to plenty, more than enough, readily available information to know enough. Third point, I didn't think I had a third point, but third very important point, admitting when we don't know something. Someone else probably knows better. Someone else is probably more experienced, more skilled, has more context. We should talk to those people when we don't know something. Pet peeve. Okay, it's kind of happening on TikTok right now. More specifically, booktok. Since when did booktok get political? Bitch, when it was illegal for people to read at a certain point.
You seem tense, Leslie. You know what you should do?
Read Twilight.
Read Twilight
Yeah.
here.
Thanks. I think we should put Twilight in the time capsule.
Leslie, no. We don't negotiate with weirdos.
Yeah.
In the same breath as I may call someone ignorant, I should be able to spark some curiosity. How do we cultivate this curiosity, especially when faced with disagreements, besides asking questions myself? And hopefully it's that form of an infectious laugh where if I ask questions, maybe they might ask questions. I know there are plenty of people in the world who, don't understand the social cues of, hey, how are you doing? How's the new job? How's the, how are the planning? And the other person just answers, and then the conversation ends there. I mean, yes, the burden does fall on me, you, to continue to ask questions, to model curiosity. If that's not working, ask open-ended questions. Recommend documentaries, podcasts, apps maybe that already fit in to the interests of whoever the individual is you're speaking to. Connecting learning to already existing interests is probably a great way to go about it. Most of all, showing patience, understanding, and an openness, making others feel as if there is room at your table, that there are no walls. What's that quote? That's, I'd rather, instead of building higher walls, build larger tables.
What the hell did Eddie do to my table? I'm so mad about this. Fuck, they're so dirty!
Lead someone to cure their own ignorance. Lead someone to better sources of information, better sources of education. So I decided to speak on curiosity, on education, because I'm sure, like many, this holiday season, I'll be honest, I've been a bit apprehensive about sitting down with family members who are of a different political leaning. Most of my hesitation comes from keeping myself accountable, to keep my opinions in check so that I could hear out someone else's, because so much feels at stake right now. I think it's also worth adding that in my view anyway, I find deep, intense failure if I've made anyone I speak to feel dumb. I'd hate for anyone to feel inferior in conversation, to make them feel dumb, because that makes me feel dumb, and it's not productive in a conversation. To stoke curiosity is so important for so many reasons. I mean, it leads to discovery. You can find your passion that way. You can change your whole outlook on life by just following curiosity. I think asking more questions actually bolsters a stronger self-esteem, because you are willing to ask for help, something I'm always working on. If you're willing to admit that you don't know, I would imagine you're also a person who's willing to admit when you're wrong. And I think it's important to hold those possibilities in our brains, in our hearts, because we have no idea what's on the other side of discovering we're wrong, discovering how we thought we knew something and turns out we didn't. All right, so to wrap this up, curiosity cures ignorance. Thanks for watching/listening. I'm Bourgeois Pig, and I'm neither bourgeois nor pig. Am I gonna figure out how to end these? I'm gonna go look into some stuff.